you ever felt frustrated, overwhelmed, or stuck wasting time in admin instead of growing, leveraging, and scaling your business? Then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Delegate to Elevate, the podcast that's all about handing off what you don't need to do so you can focus on what you do best. So here's your host, Bonnie Schutz.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Delegate to Elevate. Get stuff done. This is Bonnie Schutz, your host, and today I am super excited to bring this guest, particularly because I know him well. We've worked together in the past, and he is just an amazing human being. So, welcome today, Mr. Brian Kerlin. He is the founder and CEO of Optitude and brings over 20 years of entrepreneurial and sales leadership experience, spanning startups to Fortune 50 companies. Known for his grit and approachable leadership style, Brian is passionate about keeping others and helping others to succeed. A native of Western Pennsylvania, he's called Denver, Colorado home for the past 16 years. His company, Optitude, empowers emerging B2B companies to achieve consistent, sustainable revenue growth. We all need that revenue growth and build capacity for long-term success through his inside-up approach. Now, we can talk more about that in a bit. Optitude specializes in helping first-time founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs improve performance, streamline go-to-market systems, and create efficiencies with tailored growth strategies. From clearly defining your ideal customer to implementing revenue-generating systems and future-focused roadmap, Optitude is your partner in achieving 10x annual revenue growth. We will put Brian's contact information below, and you can contact him on LinkedIn or connect with him and visit www.optitude.co to learn more. I can't believe I got that out. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Bonnie. Thanks a lot. I know that's a mouthful, but I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for having me as a guest, and I'm excited to dig into delegation, how important that is.
My favorite word. Yeah. Yes, that's why I have you here today, because I know you're a pro at it. And I think maybe just for those out in the world, tell me how you came up with the name Optitude and what that means.
Yeah, Optitude was a combination of kind of pulling a couple thoughts together in the earliest days. I guess we've been in business now about 7 years. In the earliest days, the work that we were planning on focusing on, which obviously you just read and highlighted for the audience, is that we're big believers in helping the entrepreneur community. Not only being an entrepreneur myself, but I'm married to a very successful entrepreneur, and she has been my inspiration. And really the focus was trying to help those first-time founders break through what's often called founder-led sales challenges. So this idea of optimizing your business and generating revenue. And so optimize was a word that was kind of out there in the marketplace that we were considering. And then we also know from working with a number of founders that the right mindset and attitude have to come into play when you're trying to grow your business, realizing that you may be the bottleneck and help the business grow. So it was a little bit of the attitude, the appropriate attitude, the optimizing the business and pulling them together. And so that's how we came up with Optitude.
Fantastic. And you came up with that before ChatGPT.
We did. It might have been a lot easier because I think I went through like a handful of sessions with my marketing contact at the time that was helping me kind of build the brand.
I kept thinking it was a part aptitude, which it was like a little play on that word, but the more you know, now I know.
Yeah. I mean, strangely, I think everyone, if you come up with some sort of smashed up concept of a new word, it usually comes from something like that. But that was how we did it.
It shows that you're a pro because, it's a great conversation starter, right? Just like I just did, and getting to speak with people and learn more about what they do and how you can help them. So that's great. But what I'd like to do is go back 7 years. And when you started the company, how far in were you or when did you, and what did you outsource or hand off to somebody else to help you with at the very first time?
Yeah, in the earliest days, I mean, just like we just talked about the name, I
Yeah,
worked with someone that was like kind of a brand expert, to be honest.
that makes
So
sense.
that was someone that I reached out to. I had known this gentleman who was in my network for probably about a year, and just the way he approached brand is obviously his experience and his company and how he started it. So that was the first thing. Is I've definitely learned over the years that there are things that I think I do really well, and then there's plenty of things I know I don't do really well, and
Yeah.
I lean on those that are already experts. So in that sense, if we're talking about delegating, I mean, I found someone that had expertise in that particular area, and then started to work with him on that
That makes
project.
complete sense. I
Yeah.
did a little poll recently on LinkedIn to kind of gauge or garner what most people hand off first. And that actually, I think marketing or like the website came second. And what came
Hmm.
first was the books.
Oh wow! You mean like accounting?
Bookkeeper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
finance. Yeah, that wasn't too far behind, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. That might have been like 1-2, or split them 2-1. But yes,
Exactly. Oh
that
my
became a
gosh.
part of it.
So now that you've been in business, what, 7, 8 years,
Yeah,
almost
about seven.
identical to me, which
Hmm.
is great. What was the impact that as you added additional people to the team that you brought on in, I believe, marketing and like admin and things like that? What's been the impact on you personally and your business and how you've been able to experience growth because of it?
Oh wow, it's so fascinating because it's a great question, but clearly your podcast is geared towards this topic.
Right?
I think that probably the most prominent thing that has come from the experience of delegating or finding other people to take on tasks or areas of the business that I know either one, I'm not an expert, or two, I'm ready to kind of move on and prioritize something else, is something that we talk a lot about in the work we do with clients. It's the number one resource that all of us have that is at a finite level, and that's time.
Yes.
And we all have the same time. Like there is no way to reproduce more time on the calendar. And if someone in your audience knows, they got the $1 trillion idea.
Yeah,
So
right. Hand it
yeah,
over.
that's right. So everyone knows that to be successful in a company building kind of environment as an entrepreneur, it is trying to realize how do you look, prioritize, and figure out where to use your time the best to
Yep.
achieve the most, to accomplish the goals, et cetera. At least that's how we think about it. And so it wasn't too long into starting the business where I started to realize, like, geez, a lot of my time is in areas that I got to figure out how to remove myself because I'm not optimizing myself. I'm not
Yep.
optimizing my skills. I'm not optimizing what it is that I can help the business do to grow at the pace and goals we want to. So
Right.
number one is just understanding where I was spending my time. And, there's a great exercise that anyone can do. It doesn't have to be formal. It can be very informal. It was taught to me from previous mentors, and it's,
Mm.
where are you spending your time? It's a question that can be asked rhetorically, but most often people don't really sure where they're spending their time.
Right.
And geez, as someone that probably is an expert like you in understanding the value of delegation, it's really to look back over, let's say it's over as short as a 30-day period, maybe as much as 90 days. And if you really want to get into the granular side, you go for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And think about if you're a calendar person, I think almost everyone today operates
I sure am.
electronically. Yeah. Where do you spend your time? So take the buckets of, do I spend my time on admin? Do I spend my time on admin relative to, everything related to emails and follow up and
Yep.
contracts, for example? And then where do I spend my time on sales and marketing? Where do I spend my time on leadership? Where do I spend my time on strategic planning? So, break it down in a few buckets and look back. And I'm sure there's probably a way to do it with AI plugins
Yeah.
and automate what those totals are. And I think everyone would be surprised where they actually spend their time.
Yeah.
And that's the first way to really evaluate what you're doing in your business, at least
Yeah,
for us. At least
for
that's
sure. So, have you heard of that? What's it called? Like the Eisenhower method or something like that, where you put it into the 4 quadrants or something.
okay.
Is that kind of something like, have you ever used that?
I don't know if I've ever used that. If you want to explain it more,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be curious what it
Yeah,
is.
I kind of looked it up yesterday and forget my menopausal brain, but I'm trying to remember. It's kind of like where you segment those tasks, like you're saying, and you say, you know, it's like either like important then and crucial or critical to so like it's a must do. And so you take the tasks on your list, you put them into these 4 quadrants. And one of them is like, it's kind of nice to have, but it's not urgent. And then like you get to where in like the 4th corner box is something like, it's something that it's something you really could eliminate.
Oh,
Is it
sure.
essential? No, eliminate it. So it's either do it, delegate it, or eliminate it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I have heard. I didn't know it was called the Eisenhower quadrant,
Eisenhower
but
method or something
method or
like that to
quadrant.
that effect.
Sure. It sounds like what you're referring to is restacking your prioritization
Yeah,
into do it, delete it, delegate it, or
exactly. We can make
yeah,
up whatever we want to call it, but in that
yeah.
in that in that realm, I think it's helped me a lot to think about. I mentioned in an earlier episode this book that my coach, when I really broadly thought of the word delegate and I opened my mind, so I delegated my mind to my coach, and she brought up a book called Essentialism.
Oh,
And
sure.
it was just that word essentialism that just like, wow, it was very impactful. I hadn't thought of that word in my day-to-day work. And that was something that hit me. So that I just, that word comes into my head as we're talking about, is this essential? And I know for you, since your zone of genius, which I'm not in love with that term, using it over and over again, but it's what comes first, is sales. When if you're a solopreneur or a small business, and when is it time? Is it a dollar amount? Is it a time amount? Or like, when is it time to really consider bringing on maybe a sales admin or a fractional sales leader into your business?
Yeah, there's all sorts of different ways that we can answer that, and that's what you started to allude to. It really depends.
Okay.
Depends on the size of the business. It depends on the average client value of the work that you're doing with your particular clients. For example, our focus is trying to help professional services companies expertise in, for example, marketing or consulting or interior design or architecture, engineering, right? That's a group of people that we tend to focus our efforts in working with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of our scope of knowledge. So if I would say in working with those types of companies, it's probably best to think about it as once the founder has gotten to a place where their capacity is limited around business development, sales, or there's a term called a rainmaker, right? The individual
Yeah, I've
that
heard
brings
that
in
one.
all, yeah. When that individual, when you're the person bringing in all the revenue or all the projects, and you really can't see yourself getting slowly removing yourself from that role, you've reached a limit, right? You've reached a capacity limit, and that's going to stunt or what sometimes is referred to as bottleneck your business for future growth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yep.
depending on where that starts to happen in an organization, we tend to see it in organizations that I just described to you between maybe a little less than 1 million in top line revenue is
Mm-hmm.
maybe as high as 5 million. And then there's this idea of how do I bring in other people just to build out that function.
Yeah.
So it kind of happens in that general frame and depends
Okay.
on the business. And the other is, the founders that we work with, it's not too much into the working with them. We realize that that's a major burnout scenario for them, where they're running up the hill, racing up the hill, doing everything, bringing in the new business, trying to delegate the new business to get delivered downstream.
Yeah.
And there isn't a system or process, SOPs, I think you're pretty familiar with,
Yep. Yep.
that's not been formulated yet. And what I mean by
Mm.
that is that most founders that have broken out to start their own firm is they either one had an expertise in that particular area, they either love that type of work and also have the expertise, or they came from a firm where they said, hey, I'm going to bring some clients over and I'm going to start my own firm. And they never really took the time, because they haven't had the time, here we are referencing time again, to go through and map out what is the process they are using to acquire customers, to be the rainmaker. What are the
Right.
steps? What are the processes? And start to really document that. that's one of the first things we try to recommend to clients we work with is start taking what's in your head and get it into a document, whether it's a Notion document, Google Doc, et cetera.
Yeah.
Then we can start to manage, organize, and make adjustments to figure out, is there someone else we can delegate? So long answer to your question, but
It's okay.
thinking about bringing in somebody to help in that capacity doesn't make sense until the first couple of things I just mentioned are organized and ironed out. Because if I have seen this in many, many occasions, if those things are not organized and managed and set up and someone tries to hire somebody to do that role, that's an expensive, mostly ineffective result.
Yeah. That's a mic drop moment for me because that happens a lot in my business. A lot of people think they're ready to hire a virtual assistant, but they don't have systems and processes and really a plan in place. In fact, I'm meeting with someone this afternoon, a client of mine, to have a work session with her because the delegation that she's doing, it's just not good. She's not good at it. And it is a muscle, and this podcast aims to help people build that muscle. I attribute it a lot to, it's like working out. You're on this spectrum. You can lift 10 pounds or you can lift 300 pounds. It is a process of learning how to delegate and how to build that muscle. But it's also being strategic about who you're delegating to and when. So thank you for that insight on like when it's the appropriate timing. But it is so important to really assess what you're doing, what you want to do, where you want to go, and then, then go to your network and your resources and see who you can talk to about how did they get there? How can they help you or introduce you to to people in in their network to help you get there. So, I mean, that's what has propelled me is my network and my clients. I know that I attended and I was a part of another thing that you offer within Optitude called the Optitude Growth Academy. Can you tell people a little bit more about what that might help them with?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I have to go back to, I can't pass up this opportunity, especially because your podcast is called Delegate to Elevate. So I want to make sure we touch on something as a pretty unique framework that I've learned from other mentors, and it's related to delegate. So, thinking as you help your audience get more informed, and as you said, build that muscle on delegate, I think there's a nice framework to think before delegating. There's this idea of documenting. So you and I are referring to that right now is what is it that I'm trying to delegate? And is there a documented system or process or SOP that I can build? Even if it's sketched out, very novice, very beginner-like, at least there's something. And then after there's this documentation, then there's a opportunity to be like, let's say you and I are working together and you come to me and saying, hey, I want to delegate the sales process to you, Brian. Yeah. Great. So here's the documents I want you to kind of educate yourself on. Then I would ask you to, in this case, demonstrate for me how this works. So document, demonstrate. And what you're doing in the demonstrate, which I think is a big miss that we see with, you got to be able to teach and train somebody how to do what it is that's documented and give them real-time feedback. Like go through the documentation and give them guidance as they're going through it as quickly as you can, whether that's at the end of a day, it's at the end of a 2-hour period. And then after you get to a point of, going through demonstration, you want to be able to duplicate, which is having the person repeat and see the result of the actual process over and over again.
I have to write this down. Document, demonstrate,
and duplicate.
I love the 3Ds.
Yeah, the 3Ds. So it really ties in. I just didn't want to pass that opportunity. Makes sense. It was taught to me by somebody else as a mentor, and I just think it resonates. It's a good framework for people to think about, because there's so many fumbles that happen between here's what I want you to do, here's how I want you to do it. And then if you need to, like anyone, you need to guide them through of doing it differently and getting it right. Right. Once they get it right, then it's duplicate, do it over and over again. And then everyone seems to get that muscle built.
Yep.
that you're talking about. So hopefully that was, I know it was a little aside because we
No,
went
that
to
is okay. Like, thank you for the diversion. That was a great. You gave me some nice little fodder for for a social media post. Hey,
I love it. I love it.
document, demonstrate, and duplicate. I absolutely love those little kitschy things like that. But yeah, Optitude Growth Academy, quick
Yeah.
little spiel about that because it did have a huge impact on me when, as a CEO myself, I started to invest in myself and investing monetarily, time, effort, energy into things like this really helped me grow my delegation muscles. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for one participating in it. We loved
you
having
bet.
you. It's obviously great to see the continued growth of the work
Thank
you
you.
do. But yeah, the birth of the idea has come from the work we started out with Optitude 7 years ago, and that's really around what you've started, I think, to mention early on in the introduction is something called the inside out principle. And our belief is that for organizations to grow, specifically B2B professional service organizations, the founder, well intentioned on trying to grow the performance of the business, also has to grow their capacity, and they have to actually grow simultaneously. Or one will bottleneck, and you will stall out performance and never see, quote unquote, the result of the next stage of growth. So it ties really well into delegation, right? To all of what your topic is. So that's kind of the foundation. And under performance, everyone realizes certain things have to be in place. You have to have strategies, systems, and practices, as well as all of that documented to be able to help increase the predictability of your performance of your business. In this case, the work we do relative to revenue and business development.
Yep.
And then on the capacity side, it's really about focusing on what we believe are setting the right goals for your business. So that's direction, making sure there's a disciplined approach to that. And we talk about prioritization a lot, which is knowing what your top 3 goals are each week.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly is having the discipline to stick with it. So there's this learning approach of what is your business teaching you and what is it that you can learn to make adjustments appropriately. So the inside out principle is the foundation. And then through our work of helping first-time founders, we believe that the best way to do that is give them the knowledge in a way where they can start to consume it and in the time and ability that they have available to them. So we made it into a 12-week online course. You were a part of a live program, which we offer 1 to 2 times a year, but there is an on-demand program. It's all self-taught, as far as self-learning, where somebody signs up and goes through the training modules, the videos, the templates and tools to help them really build really the inside up results in their business. So it helps improve performance and capacity. So
That's great. That's great. And I love that you have the options in there for busy entrepreneurs who can't decide if they're going to be able to be live in real life and be able to give up that amount of time, to the group or to do it on their own. So that's great.
It's been great.
That I'm happy for you. And I've also seen the evolution of your business too. So we're right there with you. And it's great to see that grow and change and develop and exceed all my expectations as I watch. So I know that you also delegated a few other things in your business, like marketing and course creation. And I'll just say it.
Yeah.
I have introduced you to a few people, and I'm happy you brought them on. And I like to mention that because it truly is, it's trusted relationships that can help expand your business too. Have those been effective and helped you exceed as well?
Oh, no question. Yeah. Thank you again for
Of
the
course.
introductions to people in your trusted network. And I would echo your thoughts that it's a lot easier to think about whom you already know and trust, that you could ask if there's a need in a particular area of our business or anyone's business, whom in that network could have that expertise. And so we did talk about that years ago. And so, I was lucky enough to have a number of different people kind of join the team in that capacity as it relates to the building of programs and courses. That, as I started off earlier in the discussion, that's not my expertise.
I wouldn't know now.
I even had to learn the actual title. Well, part of a title that's used or sometimes often used for people that have that expertise is, someone that's an instructional design expert, which
Ooh.
is the two letters I and D. So an I
Mm.
and D expert, instructional
Ooh,
design.
that's good. The more you
And
know. I think of that the more you know. Also, okay,
yeah,
I just learned a new title. That's great.
yeah, because I mean, the whole goal, as we reference back to the Optitude Growth Academy, the online program is really about how do you take um, important topics, knowledge, skills, and information and put it into a format that an adult learning principles really play into the fact of being able to deliver information in a way that's consumable, can make behavior changes, build skills, and then implement those skills in businesses. So I didn't have any knowledge of it. I was lucky enough to meet an individual that had that expertise and has helped us grow that
That
program.
marries so beautifully with the art of delegation, let me tell you.
Yeah.
That marries great. And that's why I asked you to be here today. If we had any takeaways or words of wisdom that we could impart upon the audience today, maybe a couple, what would be your top two when they're thinking about delegating or growing their delegation muscles?
Yeah. Oh boy. The first one is um, really trying to evaluate where you're spending your time. So I discussed it earlier, but I'll just have to reference it and
Yeah.
reinforce it. It's probably the one thing that can really jumpstart your impact of your business, that the mission you're trying to accomplish, is knowing where you're spending your time.
Absolutely.
And I know this can get a little more financial nuance, but kind of a way to think about that is your business is set up to achieve and help your clients solve a certain set of problems, right? And to do that, all businesses that, unless they're a nonprofit, are created to make a profit.
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm getting at is that to create a profit, you got to be able to leverage time and get the correct amount of output of whatever you're trying to solve for that customer in a way where there's still profit available at the end of that work.
Right.
Everyone, okay, we get that, right, Brian? That's
Yeah,
simple.
it's okay.
What's not simple though
It's
is
not.
each task needed to complete that work might not have the same value dollar figure to the time needed to do the work. And so that's what
Right.
leverage is really about, is how do I get the most out of the time that any of us have in the moments that we are working with clients to solve their problem.
Yep.
And so delegating is also realizing that sometimes the value of a task might not have the same value to another task in a business from a dollar figure inside the cost of delivering that work.
Yeah.
And when you can start realizing where you're spending your time as the founder and CEO, is at some point you can't be the person that does all of the tasks and all the jobs, because you'll never get the leverage.
Right. You'll be that bottleneck that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So there's a simple exercise to think through is what do you think, it's a rhetorical question to the
Sure.
audience. What is the value of an hour of your time as it relates to your business? And put a figure to it.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself how much time you're spending in the bucketed tasks we talked about earlier, and realize what dollar figure on average of those tasks, and know that if the difference is, we'll call it a couple $100 per task,
Yeah.
then you are essentially losing money in the business, throwing money down the drain because you are unable to find somebody or get out of your own way, whatever. Yeah. I've been guilty of that, right?
Right. Same.
And find someone else that can do that loves doing that work, is better at you at doing that work, and can do it with more efficiency. That is real quality leverage of your time. And I
love that you say find someone that loves doing that work, because believe it or not, those of us that hand off our books first because we don't like math or figuring out money, there are people that love doing it. And that's like unbelievable to me. But there are people that are so much better at it than I am. That's something I always had to get past, was like, oh, I can do it better, or nobody can do this like me. But that's an attitude you got to get over fast.
No doubt. So I say you're right on. And that would be that's the main thing. I think, just how to really think about your time, how to get the most leverage out of your time, where your expertise is, find other people to delegate to that have that expertise, and then and I think you said it, you kind of started to say it, so I'll just add to it to close it out. Most of the time, the mindset we have is that we that start a company, founders and CEOs, it's kind of be honest, I don't know the psychological makeup of everybody, but you have a little bit of confidence that you want something in the world to be out there with you having this stamp of doing it. Yeah. And that could be also a little troubling because it's hard to break away from being everything.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of get that mindset of, hey, I know I'm not good at everything. I know there's other people who can do it better. How do I get off that train as fast as possible with different tasks? And
you're doing it right. And you've got that bodybuilder muscle at some point. They're an extension. They're an arm of you. They are still you because at that point you are very clear and you've communicated and you've raised them up and spent time with them to be an extension of you. And that just helps you grow. So I'll kind of end with that. I say, I really love that. And the golden nugget from our chat today is the whole document, demonstrate, and duplicate. And I will quote you on that one.
Oh.
Yes. I just want to thank you so much for being here today. It means a whole lot to me. And I suggest that people take a look at your programs and your offerings. And I will drop those down in the comments. And so raise a hand, people, listen, like, follow, comment, leave us a review and ask some questions of Brian. I'll be sure to get him to him and make sure that we can give you some great feedback, or let me know if you'd like to have him back and answer and talk about another subject that you're struggling with in your growth at maybe you're plateauing or you're being that bottleneck he mentioned. Thanks again, Brian, for being here today, and delegate to elevate, folks. You'll get
Bonnie.
there.
Have
a good day. Thank you so much.
So that's it for today's episode of Delegate to Elevate. Head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $15,000 private VIP day with Bonnie herself. Be sure to head on over to delegatetoelevatepodcast.com. That's with the number 2. And pick up a free copy of Bonnie's gift and join us on the next episode.